Welcome to my new Evel Kings channel. In this channel, we're going to do some great toy reviews. We're going to do some toy repairs, all the Evel Knievel line, the vintage ones, the new ones, how they're fixed, how they're maintained, how they're optimized to get better jumping. And this channel is going to show some cool jumps from the legends in the hobby. Legends like 7-inch, which we're profiling today, Vince Ream, and his lovely wife, Judy. We're also going to interview and talk to Porter Howell and other people in this great hobby. So let's get right into it and see what you can learn about the OG GOAT, Vince Ream, the 7-inch Daredevil.
My co-worker got me that.
Ringmaster of... Well, Vince, pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you.
We've talked over the time on the internet and on the Facebook groups for the Evel Knievel toy web pages, and it's a pleasure to meet you in person. And I just wanted to sit down with you today after a ton of fun we had jumping, and the people that watch the video will see this stuff later. It's some pretty fun stuff we did today. And it was good to get to see you in person and to see how you operate. Great tips, great footage. So, welcome to the chat with the legendary Vince Ream. Now, do you go by 7 or do you go by Vince Ream?
People that know me through 7-inch Daredevil call me 7. I don't care.
As long as they call you.
Yeah, Vince is fine.
All right. Now, we're all about the same vintage. I'm 56, you're 58, in that range. And, for our generation, Evel Knievel was the answer. We were kids jumping bikes. We got the same toys for Christmas. And now they redid those. Yep. And they made the toys with California Creations. So can you tell me how you got back into becoming a jumper of this most amazing toy? What started you back into the new generation of jumping?
It was probably about a year or so before Evel passed away. I guess about 2004 or 5, somewhere along in there. I decided to start collecting the toys again. And when I first started out, I was buying some really crappy. I didn't know what I was doing. So I learned how to fix them real quick. And as I was doing that, I started modifying, make them run longer, stronger.
Farther.
And farther, yeah. So I got smarter as I went on. Another year went by or so, and I started buying my collection and putting it on shelves. Well, my grandkids at the time were coming over and they were looking at the toys, but they wanted to play with them, and I was like, no, we're not playing with those.
Not with those $800 first edition cycles.
Yeah, no. And so what I ended up doing is I went on a search and I started buying clapped out stunt cycles and the funny cars and wheelie cars and stuff like that. And I put them together for the kids to play with. And I made runways out of wood, whatever was laying around. And the grandkids came over and we started jumping, and the one grandkid says, I bet you we can put a car in there. So I pulled my car in the middle of it and we jumped the car, and then we ended up putting a car, a motorcycle, and a four-wheeler in the middle of the ramps, and that was the birth of 7.
So you're jumping over actual cars with a toy, a little bit safer than what Evel used to do and his son Robbie. And it's funny because you mentioned grandkids, that's how I got into it. I saw the toys are back available with California Creations. Looks like they're making some great stuff with your input. And I got a couple of them, and my granddaughter loved them. So we got the Dairy Daring stuff, the scramble vans, the little wheelie cars. And I think that's the biggest thing about this hobby is it's a family thing, and you can include your family in it. And so you go through this path of fixing up toys and getting them to jump further, last longer. Tell me how you built that relationship with California Creations to help them grow the quality of their bikes to what it is today and what's coming in the future. How did you get hooked up with them?
Basically, I just shot them an email and told them, that, you know, I have one of your bikes here and I want to help you make improvements upon it. Initially, I didn't think they knew exactly what I did, but I became pretty good friends with Mark, the owner of California Creations, and we've had long phone conversations. I have, back before the Pro Series came out, we got samples before they were released to the public and was pretty much told to shake them down, find out what could be improved upon them and what they need to do. So I did that, and it's just a relationship that's still there today, that if I need a bike, we're going to have a contest or whatever, Mark doesn't hesitate to send me a few bikes and keep me going. And right now, a lot of great things are in the works for California Creations, but I can't talk about that. And,
it's coming. It's coming.
It'll be coming. So just hang in there, because every week on that page, someone's like, well, you know, when's the new one coming? When's the new one coming? What's wrong with the old one?
Right.
You know, I mean, they're running pretty good now, you know, and it doesn't take much to make them run even better.
Right. You know, when we were watching some of the jumps today, some pretty amazing stuff. We went through some things. We hit the ramps. We missed the ramp. We had a lot of fun, and we got some great footage shot. And that's what I love about these new bikes. You can jump them, and they can jump a long way. And a lot of the tips that comes from your expertise we brought out in the video today, and I think the viewers, when they watch, they're going to be using a lot of your ideas. And I really respect the fact that you're sharing with that, because a lot of times, you know, through your trial and error and effort and stuff, you've learned. And passing along to other people is a definite test of character, because you're helping everybody else out like you helped me. And I called you up out of the blue and, how do I do this? How do I do it? What rivets do I need? And you were super helpful with me, and I'll always be indebted for you helping me get some of my old bikes up and running. So the guy we're talking about, Evel Knievel, everybody knows who he is. Doesn't matter what country you're from, everybody's heard of the guy. They know generally what he's done. And as kids, we were jumping our little bikes and stuff. Can you talk to me a little bit about any interactions you had with him, his wife, you know, his kids? Like, what are some stories, like a couple stories of having an interaction with the actual Knievel family?
Well, the
royalty.
The first time I met Evel Knievel was here in Pennsylvania, Chrome at the Dome, and I think that was about a year before he passed away, somewhere along in there. And clearly he was not well. He was having difficulty breathing. He was suffering from idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. And as we all know, that there's no cure for that. There's only one outcome, and that's death. And this is one competitor that, while he tried very hard to beat, he just couldn't. And but when I met him, he was very gracious. He signed a bunch of toys for me, a helmet, and I told him who I was. And he stopped riding and he looked up and he had heard of 7-inch Daredevil.
That's awesome.
And he said, that was really cool what you were doing. And that was my first and last interaction with him. That would have been probably in 2006 or 5. I can't remember for sure. And Evel passed on in 2007.
With him, it's amazing. All of the things in his life that could have killed him, all the motorcycle jumps that he took off where he knew he was not going to make it, and he still did it anyways, and the lifestyle that he led, of all the different things, if you had to predict what's going to kill Evel Knievel, dying like when you get to be old of a medical condition that just humans get, instead of on the seat of a Harley. Who would have thought?
Yeah, you would have thought he would have went to see our Lord on the back of a Harley.
Or on a sky cycle going
Yeah.
into Snake River Canyon.
Yeah, that sky cycle shot was, I don't know how he even had the nerves to even get in it and try it, but you know, he was a man of his word.
And he did it. I think the other thing with
I
him...
got to tell you something else. When I met him, and he was old and frail, he was definitely not the man that you remember. And when I had that moment of talking to him, it was just like my whole childhood just disappeared in front of me. I'm looking at this frail old man.
It's not the same guy.
No, and when he was talking and he was barking out orders to people behind the scenes, he scared me. He still had that swagger and he still had the bravado, and honestly, if he would have gotten angry at me, I probably would have cried at that point, because he still had a presence about him.
Star presence, yeah.
I mean, it's just, he took command of the whole room.
I think the thing, you know, before we get into some of your other interactions with his other family members, the biggest thing I think with him is impact, besides just having the ability to send it and just see what happens, is how he created Travis Pastrana, how he created the X Games, how he created motorcycle jumps in the freestyle motocross, and all of the things, Tony Hawk skateboard, all that stuff sort of came from him. Daredevil, try stuff. And he's the guy that just came up with stuff, and even if he knew he wasn't going to make it, he still did it because he was obligated.
Yep.
Now, who else did you meet in his family? I know you mentioned you met his wife.
Yeah, Linda. That would have been at a couple of the Evel Knievel days, 14 and 15, I think, somewhere along in there. We were doing a jump show in the rotunda at the courthouse, and I jumped over the fellas from Nitro Circus, Pastrana.
Cool.
Matt Hoffman was there.
That's awesome.
Wheels, the dude that those crazy jumps in a wheelchair.
That guy's insane.
Yeah. After everything was done there and all the cameras were done, everybody filed out because there was other shows going on. And it left me and my then girlfriend, who's now my wife, to load everything back up, drag everything back out of there. Linda come down. Linda Knievel, and she come down and she said, those guys couldn't even lift a finger to help you, and she started picking up stuff and carrying it out to load it up. And it's just like, you don't have to do this, and it didn't matter. She wanted to help.